The Bills beat Miami on a bomb of a field goal, 30-27 in another day, Matthew, for Josh Allen with 3 touchdowns, over 200 yards. He completed passes to 8 different wide receivers, which has kind of been the story of this Bills offense this year.
Yeah, it has been, and it's been very frustrating for fantasy. Josh Allen is awesome. He's amazing. He's a proud Fantasy Life investor, by the way.
No correlation.
No big deal. But but here were the touchdowns. It was, I believe it was Quentin Morris, Ray Davis, and Matt Collins. So it's just like credit to the Bills because they're getting everyone involved. And to your point about how many different guys touch the ball, but fantasy-wise, it's frustrating. Slow day at the office for James Cook. They didn't have Amari Cooper in this one. We thought Keon Coleman might, continue. He'd been hot recently the last couple of weeks. That didn't really happen.
The drop was a nightmare that led to an interception, and that's, going to make them wonder at times, can we always trust the rookie?
Yeah, it just doesn't. It feels like they might be the best offense that doesn't have a ton of consistent fantasy value in the NFL. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
You're starting Josh Allen every week. I think you start James Cook every week. You're probably starting Dalton Kincaid just because of the state of the position, but otherwise you don't feel great about. There's some PPR 12-team 3-wide receiver league value in Khalil Shakir. And we've seen some spikes from Keon Coleman, and, we hope that Amari Cooper gets healthy, and we think, talented player on a good offense. But
to me, it reminds me of 2 years ago when Mahomes won MVP on that Chiefs team the year after Tyreek Hill leaves, and Mahomes has 5,200 passing yards, 41 passing touchdowns, and you don't feel good about any of the wide receivers. The number 1 wide receiver on the team was Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, the difference is this Bills team doesn't have peak Travis Kelce. And so it's just even more diversely spread. It's also very difficult to predict because a lot of Allen's value so far through the air has just come through yak. Like the Ray Davis screen pass, Ray Davis just takes it to the house. Like you don't really know where it's coming from. We also have no idea yet how Amari Cooper is going to assimilate fully into this offense and what the ripple effects are on that. So at the moment, it's really like Dalton Kincaid, you still probably have to start him because he's a tight end. And James Cook, you got to start even though he had a pretty underwhelming game, not getting a ton of work on the ground despite what he did in the previous matchup against Miami.
Yeah, so we agree there. One thing I will say is that as good as Josh Allen's day was, it's his 4th straight game with at least 19 fantasy points, it could have been even bigger. He had an unbelievable rushing touchdown that got called back due to the ticky-tackiest.
It's a bad call.
That was an awful, awful call. So a big day should have been even bigger. A fantasy heartbreak. The other thing I'll just mention on let's move to the Dolphins side of the ball here, guys, and I'll start with the positives. Devon Achane is him. He looks awesome.
And they're treating him that way, which is the most important aspect, Matthew. The fact that he got 12 carries, and then he also gets such an insane volume in the pass game. Mostert is still running really well.
Yeah.
But Achane in the pass game is what makes him the guy in fantasy.
There's been 4 starts that Tua Tagovailoa has made this year, and Devon Achane has a 22% target share in those games. 22% for Devon Achane. Those are wide receiver numbers, good wide receiver numbers. In this one, 8 targets. He catches all 8 of them for 58 yards and also has a receiving touchdown. He's had at least 6 receptions in every Tua start this year. Achane currently enters Monday Night Football as the number 2 running back in fantasy football. He's a top 5 guy as long as he and Tua are both healthy. Meanwhile, Raheem Mostert, you see it right there. Raheem Mostert is still a viable flex because they're running well. It's the only thing on that offense that seems to be working well. You're still starting Tyreek Hill, but this is disappointing. He's got an 18.5% target share in this game. His 4th game this year with under 20%. I mean, he's Tyreek Hill. He should be getting
not anymore.
He should be getting
not anymore.
He should be getting a 33% target share.
Maybe he can't. Maybe he's just not that guy anymore. He's past 30. He hasn't shown it at all. He had one 80-yard touchdown against the Jags in Week 1. Outside of that, he's done nothing with multiple quarterbacks. And the other thing, the biggest concern for me.
Yeah, but how much is that at him? How much of that is him? How much of that is Jaylen Waddle and the rest of the offense not providing a threat, so he's getting bracketed and triple teamed? And
the line stinks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a good offensive line.
The thing that will get lost in this game because they lost is that Tua was incredible. Tua was amazing.
He looked really good.
He was 25 of 28, 231 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He was basically flawless in this game. And the fact that didn't lead to production for Jaylen Waddle at all. Jaylen Waddle finishes with -4 yards because of the final play. And yet Tyreek goes 4 for 80 and it's fine. But on the 5 targets, it's not really what you're expecting out of Tyreek. Tyreek Hill last year was a guy who was just consistently getting 13, 14 targets a game. Was an absolute monster. So I don't know what's happened there. I don't know if he's always on the injury report. He's past 30. So maybe it's just all added up for Tyreek.
I think McDaniel is just a obsessed with everything being so quick in this offense that they are not a drop back. Like, it's not like if Tyreek, and I don't blame Tua for this necessarily, some of his injuries factor in, but they're not a drop back offense, scrambles, long throws down the field over and over again, and that's going to hurt Tyreek in fantasy.
There's no doubt about it. In the 2 games since Tua has returned, he's averaging 12.6 fantasy points per game. You mentioned that week 1 game. That's the last time he scored over 14 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Like week 1. Like Tyreek Hill has been, unfortunately, and I don't think it's all him, but he has been a fantasy disappointment, obviously, because of everything that's happened with the Miami Dolphins offense. We can talk about this more tomorrow, but I think you can make a very strong case that Jaylen Waddle should be welcome to Dumpsville. Population him. It's unfortunate because we like Waddle as a player, but for whatever reason, maybe it's health, maybe it's the scheme, it's somewhat of the quarterback play, but it just hasn't been there. This is a guy who on Sunday scored a touchdown and still finished with less than 8 fantasy points. That's hard to do. That's hard to do. That might be even harder to do than have the kind of numbers that Geno did and have the QBR that he wound up with. Like, to score a touchdown and still finish under 8 fantasy points. Week 1 was the last time he had double-digit fantasy points. He's got 1 game this year with more than 46 receiving yards. That last play was an abomination. By the way, I got a text from my buddy Matt Siegel. Shout out to my buddy Matt, who had Jaylen Waddle and lost by 1.6 fantasy points because of all the negative yards
running
he
backwards.
caught on that crazy play at the end where they're tossing and everything like that. And to your point, right, exactly. Jaylen Waddle finishes with 2 receptions for -4 yards, much of it being subtracted on that
lateral.
big,
Went 23
on that
yards
lateral.
backwards.
Yeah, it was just an awful, stupid play that didn't do anything well. But honestly, when you watch the game, Waddle catches this touchdown. He had the big conversion late in the game, but they didn't look for him for the majority of the game.
They haven't for a long time. He was a total non-factor when Tua wasn't playing. Now Tua's back and 2 targets.
It feels like the target shares go Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, Jonnu Smith.
I was going to say Jonnu Smith, yeah.
And then you finally get around to Jaylen Waddle.
In a run-heavy offense.
Forget not counting the League of Assholes, where anyone with a pulse gets snatched up. There was a bidding war for Bryce Young this weekend. But if you're in a normal,
Vindicated.
Yeah, but yes, exactly. In a normal league, though, if Jaylen Waddle was on your waiver wire, you trying to pick him up? I don't think I am.
That's spending real fab.
No.
To have Jaylen Waddle.
No, it's awful. Anyway, we should move on.
Back to the NFC.
Right? But it's awful. I feel
what's
bad.
happened to him? Yeah.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.